And good morning. We are live on YouTube. We want to bring in our Facebook groups as well. It's Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and All Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. Get those in. We'll get rolling today on a soggy Tuesday morning here, not just in the Southeast, but it looks like that storm rolls all the way to New Mexico. Welcome in, everybody. This is a Tuesday version of the Falcons podcast. We normally go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I've been out of town for a week and just got back in town last night and said, you know what? We missed Monday. We're not going to miss Tuesday. So we're going Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday on these channels. Good to be back. It's good to be here. Lots of people already in the chat already. Some news that's happened, and we are 1 week closer to the NFL draft. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sometimes Tuesdays, which is a good reason to hit the subscribe button so you can have those notifications hit in case we do a different type of podcast, a gut reaction, a live NFL draft show, those type of things. We do those all the time. So I want to make sure that you get the notifications when we go live. So appreciate you being here. I want to say hello to some folks in the chat that were here before we even got started. Like My Swanker, he says, do you see the Falcons as contenders or pretenders this year? I think they should absolutely be contenders for the NFC South. In fact, I think they should be favorites for the NFC South. And if you look at the betting odds and those type of things, as far as win totals, betting odds, Super Bowl odds, the Falcons are the favorites for the NFC South. We'll see how that plays out. You're Atlanta Falcons fans. You know how that plays out. You can get your hopes up, but I think there's reasons to be hopeful for this team. You know, there should be. You've got new coach, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, some good talent already, some good talent on both sides of the ball. You've got some work to do on defense, but the offense is fairly well set. Kirk Cousins can come back and play even 80% of the level that he was at last year before he got hurt. It's a playoff team, no doubt in my mind. So, as far as contenders go, contenders for a Super Bowl, I guess it would depend on what you would consider a contender. Do I think they can be one of the final 8 teams standing? I do. I think they would have a chance to get into the playoffs, win a playoff game, depending on the matchup, but they're behind other teams. I think they'd be behind the 49ers right now. The Detroit Lions, I might consider the favorites in the NFC right now. Then you look over on the other side of the ball and, are they contenders to beat Kansas City in a game that matters? Probably not. They'd probably be a 7 to 8 point underdog, which is big in the NFL. But we'll see. Michael Ranquillo, good to see you. It's been a week or so. So glad you're back in. Glad you still found us again. He says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast." Yeah, I didn't bother Nick. Nick takes Tuesdays off. I normally take Tuesdays off from podcasting, but wanted to get back in here and say hello to everybody. He follows back up. My Swanker follows back up. Says, what would it cost to move back into the first round after drafting at 8 if we draft there? So the question is you want to move back into the back end of the first and get the player that you didn't get in with your number 8. So let's say at number 8 you decide to go edge. Well, you still really need a cornerback. What would it cost to trade back up and say get Cooper DeJean in there, or maybe Terrion Arnold slips to 18 and you want to go there? So it depends on how far back up you want to move, obviously. But with those 2 third-round picks that you have, I think one of those and then maybe another day 3 maybe could get you back in if you took your second rounder, and then I think your second rounder and then another third is what I'm trying to spit out. I've already assumed you're taking your second rounder. The second rounder, maybe you could pull off a day 3, but it'd probably take another one of their thirds. Should do it, but you never know. You just don't know for sure. I was thinking about this question when I saw it come in, My Swanker, about, you remember what it cost back in the day? Let's see, 1999 NFL draft. The Falcons they traded a future first round pick for a high second round pick. It was maybe, let's say, 37. It was, so give or take 2 or 3. So they traded their 2000. Let me see. I've got the numbers right. Yeah, because it was coming off the 98 season. So it was a 99 draft. They traded their 2000 number 1 to Baltimore for their second round pick, which was in the 30s or early 40s. And they drafted Reggie Kelly. It took a future first or 1 to get number 2. They drafted tight end Reggie Kelly for power football. And then Jamal Anderson blows his knee out and the Falcons go 4-12. And that future number 1 turns into the number 5 overall pick, which then became Jamal Lewis, Atlanta native. Went to, I don't know if he went to Douglas or not, but Atlanta native and freak of a football player and multiple 1,000-yard rusher. Number 5 overall pick. Gets expensive. It does get expensive. Roderick Cook, good to see you this morning. He says, afternoon, Scott and Nick. I'll say hello to Nick later for you. He says, hope you had a great time. Glad the A-team are back. Appreciate you. Did have a good time. Joseph Smith is in Ocala, Florida. He says, excited about the upcoming draft. Good morning, everyone. Rise up. Jeremy Sean, good to see you. He says, morning, Scott and Nick. Welcome back from vacation. Hope you got recharged. It was a really good type of vacation because I had a blast. I went scuba diving in Cozumel for went 5 days of scuba diving. Took my kids. They got them certified down there. So that was the first time I've gotten to dive with them. And Cozumel is an awesome place to go diving. I'm going to have a ton of pictures. I'll probably put a highlights reel on my YouTube page. Just why not? Maybe I can appeal to the SEO gods, Cozumel highlights, diving highlights, but lots of drift. It was a lot of current, but the weather was good. The people were great. The food was great. Had a good time, but I came back ready. I was ready to come back. That's what a vacation is for. And got back last night. I'll tell you one of the things that I missed. And one of the things I missed having was my own coffee while I was down there. That's one of the problems with being on vacation. We start our mornings here with Lion Coffee, and Lion Coffee is out of Hawaii. They have award-winning blends using 100% Arabica beans and Hawaii-inspired flavors that make you feel like your first cup is the closest thing to a morning walk on the beach. Walk on the beach or not, it's how we start our mornings on the Falcons podcast. They have everything you could possibly want, from single-serve flavor decaf, or what I'm drinking right now, the classic medium dark. Here's a link to Lion Coffee. I'm going to drop it in the chat, and it's also in the description of this podcast. LionCoffee.com gets us up and running in the morning, and I promise, you'll love them too. So I've got a link here I want to use. It's in the description. I want to share it with y'all. They've been keeping us up and running and caffeinated for over a year now. So thanks to them, and thanks to y'all for helping support them. You know, like I said, it's more roar in every pore since 1864. So good stuff. Appreciate everything that they do. A1317 Sauce, he says, good morning, Scott Nick. Let's talk football. Good to see you, A1. Silas is here. He says, good morning. Hope you enjoyed your vacation. Did. Jeff Holton, hello from Ocala. Is that our second person from Ocala? Or did I miss one here? Joseph from Ocala also. Well, we're big in Ocala. So thanks for being here, y'all. Funeral services coming in. Finally caught them live. Well, glad you could make it. The Tuesday helps a little bit. Surprises some folks. John Harrell Jr., good to see you. Jordan Brown is here. Clayton Huck says, welcome back. How was the trip? Trip was great. Lots of scuba diving. Saw the biggest effing crab I've ever seen. I didn't even know they came that big down here. I'm not lying. I've got a picture on my Instagram page. The dude had a head like a sewer cap. It was like his head was this big around. And then his claws reached. I wouldn't have been able to get my arms around this thing. It was just under there hiding. You know, I was, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And then the eels down there. There's a big green moray eel is bigger around than as big around my waist. You know, and the dive master is like trying to pet him and stuff. I'm like, that's okay. I don't mind watching. So good trip. Good trip. Troy Green, he's here. Found your YouTube. Good. Glad to see you. And one of the things I wanted to talk about here, and we'll get into this in a second, are the two new additions to the Falcons. Got a defensive end and a cornerback. We said it's time to start focusing on the defense a little bit. And Jordan Brown says, call me crazy, but I think a decent cornerback, DL, and defensive end signings are just to keep the cards close to our chest for the draft. Still doesn't signal exactly what we are going to do. No. Now, the two signings, one of them, they're both one-year deals for best I can tell. The terms haven't been released yet, but there is not, Jordan, and I agree here, there is not a single move that the Falcons have made in the last 2 weeks or will make in the next 3 weeks that will have any effect whatsoever on the NFL draft. None, zero, zip. Scott, what does this move mean? They signed James Smith-Williams, a defensive end. Nothing. It means nothing for the NFL draft. They signed Kevin King at cornerback. What does that mean for the NFL draft? Zero. It means absolutely zero. You've got to have, I don't know the numbers exactly off the top of my head, but close to 100 players will report and be part of the team over the summer. And then they pare that down to 55, re-sign 16 for the practice squad. So you're talking 71 players. You need some depth. These guys right now, at best, would be contributors, but they are not necessarily being counted on for anything. I promise you, whatever they sign isn't, one, for big money. Two, probably not guaranteed either. There might be some guaranteed money kicked in there, but there's no guarantee that James Smith-Williams, 6'4", 265-pound tight defensive end, who spent some time with the Washington football team, will even be on the team in September. None. No guarantee at all. Kevin King, cornerback, spent some time with the Packers, missed the last 2 seasons. He stepped away from football. I don't know exactly, mental health reasons or whatnot in 2022. Was coming back in 2023. Blew out his Achilles. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And is coming back. He'll be on a nothing type of deal. Good size. If he slows down just maybe a step, maybe play some safety. He's had some tackling problems in the past, but his last season in 2021, before he was injured, it's really started turning that around as well. So James Smith-Williams, 6'4", 265. I actually like this signing. I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't make the team, if he's not part of the depth in the squad at one of the defensive end spots. I think he's absolutely good enough. Started a bunch of games for Washington, still 26 years old. So a young guy. I've got his numbers here. Why am I trying to guess on this stuff? 26 right now. He'll turn 27 over in July. He started 14 games for Washington in 2022 at 25 years old. And last year, he still started 7 games. Best season was 2022. He had 3 sacks. If I can get 3 sacks out of a reserve defensive end, 265, while playing good run defense, I'd be pretty happy. Kevin King has some ties to the staff. He played for Coach Jimmy Lake. He played for Jerry Gray. So defensive back, defensive coordinator. He's played for both of those guys in pros in college. Willing to give him another shot coming off of an injury. We'll see. It doesn't really mean anything as far as it goes for, what can I expect? What does this mean for the NFL draft? It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Let me bring up my Facebook page quick, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Apologies. I'll cut this out of the audio afterwards. Apologies. Thank you for your patience while you are watching with me online, but I don't want to miss anybody on Facebook here too, if they happen to come in with some stars or super chats or whatnot. So want to say hello to some more folks that have come in, but those are the 2 guys they've signed. Could be quality signings, but nothing earth moving right now. And again, nothing that is going to affect what the Atlanta Falcons do in the NFL draft. Saw a question here. It's from Dave. Dave, good to see you, Dave. Scott, all of a sudden I'm intrigued by Michael Pratt, Tulane quarterback, being a nice developmental quarterback. No way Spencer Rattler is available after day 2. Dave, I'm not interested in Michael Pratt. After watching him at the maybe it's too small a sample size, but again, when you go to scout somebody, you see somebody, do they have kind of the enough factor? Do they play? Let's say I'm at a combine first and a kid rips off a prospect rips off a 4.45 or whatever. Okay, I'm interested. He's absolutely got the physical tools to play at this game. Now let me see more. With Michael Pratt, I just didn't see the physical tools to be an NFL quarterback. I didn't. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. He could end up being the next big thing. But with Michael Pratt, I saw Bailey Zappi. I saw one of the forever day, third string quarterback who ends up coaching one day. I didn't see it. No offense to him, but this is what I do. This is what I saw. Not saying I'm right. I'm saying what I saw, and Dave, I did not see it in Michael Pratt. Maybe, an undrafted free agent, don't risk anything, but I don't think I'd even draft him, Dave. I said that about Felipe Franks when I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. Might have drafted him as an athlete, as a tight end defensive end. May have taken a chance, but just didn't see the throwing there. I don't see it now in Michael Pratt. And no, I don't think there's any way Spencer Rattler makes it into the 4th round to be a day 3 guy. I do not. JB, good to see you. Says I can't wait until the draft coming up quick. It'll be here quick. Looking forward to it too. Um, talking about one of the questions is, is there any idea when you'll see some penalties, if there will be any for the tampering investigation into Kirk Cousins? No, don't know anything on that right now. Let me see. Jay Cruz says, good morning, Nick. I'm Scott. That's okay. Nick usually joins. First time on live. Good to have you, Jay. I have to say, I don't know if we are a top 12 defense anymore. It just doesn't seem to be shaking out like that. Your thoughts? Nope, not right now. And I think, Jay, some of that was a little bit of smoke and mirrors last year. Did it feel to you like the Atlanta Falcons could get a stop if they needed one? And it didn't. I didn't feel that, and part of it was because of the pass rush. The pass rush was still pretty poor. It improved a lot and was still bad. It went from god awful to bad, and that was an improvement. Now, if they can go from bad to average, that would even be a bigger improvement. But no, you don't have your consistent pass rushers in there, especially after Grady got hurt. If Grady and David Onyemata can come back together and push the interior and free up the edges a little bit, that would be a big help. But we've said edge for a while now at that number 8 pick. So I think that's where it starts. You still need a safety. You still need another starting cornerback. So edge, probably 2 edges, safety, corner. Then the defense looks pretty solid. It really does. Now, how quickly can they come together as a group under yet another defensive coordinator? We'll see. We will see. I think Ryan Nielsen did a good job with that. DeMarcus making a change, says, hey, bro. Right back at you. Leaf Yapple says, I really hope we get Jared Verse. He's a first-year impact player. Turner is Vic Beasley. Probably better, but still a 3-year project. So, of course, we'll take Brock Bowers. I don't think the Falcons will take Brock Bowers. I think they've got that guy in Kyle Pitts. If they didn't have Kyle Pitts, I'd say Brock Bowers would be someone to keep an eye on. I think they'd want something they don't want another jumbo receiver. I'm not saying they don't want one, but there's other directions you would rather go. And frankly, I'd rather have, I'm not saying I wouldn't want Brock Bowers. I'm just saying it's not different enough from what you already have in the guys. Drake London, big receiver. Kyle Pitts, big receiver. Okay, I need the speed in there. The Falcons, over the offseason, they went a long way to try and get faster. 2 of their offseason acquisitions, Rondell and Mooney, speed guys, sub 4.4 guys. I think that's the way they go if they want a receiver, not necessarily Brock Bowers. We had said if it was Brock Bowers, it probably meant Kyle Pitts was going to be moved. I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to be moved. Oh, and Jay says, Scott too. Sorry, no problem, man. No problem. Nick, good to see you. Keith Robbins as well. Good to see you, Keith. Harry says, I was on vacation last week and I sure missed y'all. Well, Harry, I was too. I actually took a vacation. I don't do that real often. So it was good to get away. Like I said, I went down to Cozumel, Mexico for about 8 days. I left on Easter Sunday and came back last night and did 5 days of diving while I was down there, and love scuba diving. I really do. I'm a big animal nature person. So and enjoyed it. Raymond Collins, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you as well. Chris Walker is in the house. Says, good morning, Scott. Hope that you and your family had a great time on vacation. It has its challenges when you've got, brother and sister and, not really any other distractions. But overall, it was good. Sometimes I was thinking, what did I get myself? Clark, what'd you get yourself into with the Griswold family here? Nando's in here. Said, it's good to see you. Chase is back. And let's see. Here we go. And Ryan Adonis, good to see you, Ryan. He says, I didn't even know we signed James Smith-Williams. I think that is a decent signing. I really do. I think it's pretty good depth. And what I'm hoping is that it's not necessarily a replacement for Calais Campbell. I think Calais is still an option. We'll see. Unless I missed something while I was gone, I think he's still an option. String Guy, good to see you too. He says, glad you're back, Scott. Good to be back. And John has some of the news also. John, he says, I saw where Tavondre Sweat, defensive tackle / nose guard from Texas, got a DWI. Yes, he did. How much will that affect him? We'll see. To push him into the third. Was he already a third? The 40 to 55 range felt about right before this. So we'll see where that happens. So where does Devondre Sweat fall now? Hopefully, more importantly, hope he gets it together. Glad no one was hurt. Um, we can get into this some other time. Hit me up if you want to talk about this. I get it, and the alcohol education in this around here is just awful, and hopefully he's learning from his mistakes. And don't drink and drive, y'all. There's really absolutely no reason for it now when Uber is just a click away. So but String Guy says, where'd you hear it? It happened 2-3 days ago, so that did happen. And Jordan was including Eddie Goldman in those 3 signings. I didn't include Eddie Goldman because this is the 3rd time the Falcons have signed him, and he hadn't played a snap. Eddie Goldman, they signed him from Chicago, and he retired. They take him off the retired list and signed him again, and he retired again. Well, he's back. Is he really Eddie Goldman? As Sean says, 3rd time's a charm. I'm not buying it, man. We'll see. If he anything that you have to do is anything that Eddie Goldman you get out of Eddie Goldman is gravy. I'm certainly not counting on him when it comes to contributing to the Atlanta Falcons. I see Keith Brugman over on Facebook. He says, fantastic to see you, Scott. Can you speak on Penix? And if there's a discountants, it's too big a word for me, man. I went to public schools, brother. Or of left-handed quarterbacks. That means do people discriminate against left-handed quarterbacks? Keith, you've heard me say before, you've watched enough of my stuff before to know that I think one of the biggest detriments to the passing game in football is baseball. If you look at the NFL draft or the Major League Baseball draft and you look at the top 60 guys taken, you will probably see 30 to 40 guys that say LHP, RHP, left-handed pitcher, right-handed pitcher, that are over 6 feet tall. 30 to 40 guys a year. How many of those guys would be quarterbacks? 1 a year, 2 a year would be your pocket guys. These 6'5" guys throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour. The pocket quarterback's gone. They're playing baseball, man. You're carrying 14-man staffs. I'll just round it up and call it almost 15-man staffs these days. 30 teams, that's 450 pitchers. There's 32 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks. Relief pitchers making, the $5-6 million easy, let alone the starters these days. So baseball is chipping away, has been chipping away at football for a while now, especially the big armed throwers. Now, how about a left-handed pitcher? Left-handed pitchers are even more valuable. So I don't think there's necessarily a discrimination against left-handed quarterbacks or a bias against them. I just think they're all playing baseball, dude, is what I think. If I could, there's just how many left-handed pitchers are there versus left-handed quarterbacks? They're rare. Why? Because they're playing baseball. That's what I happen to think on that one. Talking about Penix, though, Rusty comes in. Good to see you, Rusty. He says, the good thing about social media is everyone has a voice. The bad thing is everyone has a voice. Had to unfollow some pages, get burnt out arguing with clowns all the time. They seem to like Penix. The clowns or the Atlanta Falcons? So the Atlanta Falcons went on a private workout. So when I saw they were going out to Washington, I'm like, okay, go out to Washington. There's a lot of good prospects there, including Rome Odunze. And, they're having a private workout with Michael Penix. I will be absolutely floored if they use a first-round pick on a quarterback. Floored. Shocked. I hesitate to say it will never happen, but one step short of saying it will never happen. Does Penix go that high? Now, what does happen, and this seems like a lot of effort to go through instead of just leaking some information. Would you take him in the second? I might. I could see Michael Penix in the second if he was there. So would you trade back up in the first for him? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trade back up in the first for a quarterback. I'd want a position player to help me win now while Kirk Cousins is in his window of being affordable, which is $25 million this year and $40 million next year, which is affordable for a starting quarterback. That said, y'all have heard me say before, and if you're new, welcome in. If the Falcons are in the market to trade down, then the teams that want to trade down want to gas up as many quarterbacks as they can because they will get the best return on a trade if that team is coming up for a quarterback. I have a question for you. Help me out here. Gas up means kind of fake blowing us, like a bluff almost. If I gas up a quarterback like Michael Penix because I actually want to trade down, is that gaslighting? Is gassing up gaslighting? Is that the same thing? Because I don't still quite understand what gaslighting is. Is that it? If they're gassing up Michael Penix because they want to trade down, is that gaslighting? Help me out with this one. This old guy could use some help on this one. Leaf says Penix in the 4th, no earlier. I'll throw up like that if it's not a position player in this draft. Leaf, I'd be okay with the 2nd. I wouldn't be where I'd want to go. It'd be way down on my list, especially of available players. But if they went 2nd round on Michael Penix, I could live with that. I think he's a 1st-round talent with undrafted free agent medicals is one of the problems there. So, but he's got the arm. When you turn on the game, I watched Washington play Oregon both times, and you come away from that game going, okay, I know who the NFL guy is watching this game. Those are 2 games though, so it is a small sample size, but his arm jumps. You see it right away. So big fan. Let's see. When I'm talking about Dave, I was hoping you'd be to offer much better insight. Dave was on the Michael Pratt thing. Be more positive or better insight? I get it. Winston Thornton, good to see you, my man. He says, good morning, Scott. What's your approach with the 1st round? Are you trading up, staying put, or trading back? I would love, Winston, I would love to move back into that 11, 12, 13 area with Vikings, Broncos, Raiders, 11, 12, 13, because I still think you can get one of those premium defenders, edge or corner, one of those 2, which I think are the 2 biggest needs left for the Atlanta Falcons. Edge, corner. I think I can trade back and get one of the top guys in this draft at 11, 12, and 13, and it's going to cost somebody a 2nd-round pick. The Broncos don't have a 2nd-round pick this year. I want a 2nd-round pick this year. If I can get a bidding war, maybe they offer me a 1st to move up. Maybe that'd be a little on the rich side. I would love to trade back. If I pick up another day 2 pick, pick up another 2nd-round pick, maybe then I trade back up into the 2nd and into the back end of the 1st. So I would love to see the Falcons draft something like 12 and 23. I think that would be perfect. So as with my approach the 1st round, that's what I would be looking for, is to try and move back a little bit and then get another back end of the 1st-round pick. And then if I could get my edge and corner that way, I prefer edge first because I think the top edge guys, I think they're better than the guy like Chop Robinson who could be in the back end of the 1st. We'll see. Chop's got some pretty good measurables and stuff. Where does Latu come in? I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to gamble on him falling below 15 though. So I feel like there's 3 big edges. Latu, UCLA, Jared Verse, Florida State, and Dallas Turner, Alabama. And then there's like 4 pretty good corners in there that I think will be top 25 guys. And I would want to, I'd want to wait until the last one of those was available, and then I would try and trade back in. You guys have seen me do it on mock drafts before. Terrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins are in there. And then after that, I think there's a decent drop off, but we'll see. That would be my way to try and do that. And Dave says, Latu looks like the better football player, while the other 2 look like better athletes. Give me the football player. I'd be okay with all of them. You know, if I was to trade back, okay, I'm at 8. I'm going to move to 11. I know 8's not coming up for an edge. That gives me 9, 10, and 11. That gives me 3 guys, three picks. I'd be okay taking the third of that bunch if it got me another second round pick. So give me the third choice of those three edges and a second round pick, and I'm okay with that. Now, the odds that the edges are going to go 9 and 10 are pretty slim. And Harry Marshall says, we were a top 12 defense until the Grady injury. Okay. Remember the schedule the Atlanta Falcons had last year and who they were playing before the Grady injury? Let me see here. Let me see if I can get these in order. Atlanta Falcons ref on 2023 games. First game, Carolina Panthers at home. Bryce Young making his first ever start. Second game, Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love making his second ever start. At Detroit Lions, good defensive effort there, held them to 20 points, but they put up some yardage on that. It was 360 yards. At Jacksonville Jaguars, you got thumped pretty good there, but the defense was okay with 300 yards. Houston Texans was that's Tennessee. That was C.J. Stroud making his fourth or fifth ever start. Washington Commanders, Sam Howell making his fifth or sixth ever start. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. Tennessee Titans. I don't remember for sure when Grady Jarrett got hurt. Tennessee Titans. Will Levis making his first ever start. Minnesota Vikings. Who's the guy they had to come in from BYU? I don't remember his name. His first ever start. Doesn't last the first quarter. And here comes Josh Dobbs, who got off the MARTA train to come in and rescue the team. Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray coming back and making his first start in over a year. Guys, this wasn't a top 12 defense. They played well, don't get me wrong. But this was an historically easy schedule. You'll never see a line of quarterbacks like that again. Maybe not in the beginning of the season, maybe at the end of the season. So it was definitely better. I'm a huge Grady Jarrett fan, but no. This defense needs some dudes. They need at least one more edge. I think they need two. Another corner, another safety. There were some liabilities out there. The pass rush still wasn't good enough. And as Rudy says, yeah, but our offense was bad too. Our D was on the field for a long time, and they still held their own. Yeah, they did. They held their own. They weren't great. And I think the numbers flattered them a little bit. So that's all I was saying. Harry says, I think losing Jeffrey Okudah is going to hurt more than we think. Depends on who they replace him with. I don't think that Kevin King is a replacement for a cornerback too. So we'll see if he even makes the roster. I wouldn't put a ton of money on it right now. Floyd Donnelly says, good morning, Scott and Nick Kendall. Good to see you. Let me see. I want to go down here a little bit. There's some questions here. Let me see. Is there any truth in Neighbors possibly dropping? Malik Neighbors possibly dropping. If not, why do they do this to these kids? As far as the rumors of him dropping, why do they do this to these kids? So many reasons. As I've said before, the PR hit squad against Caleb Williams was out in full force this year. Didn't work. So they turned to Drake May. Okay. I'm not sure if that worked either. So why not Malik Neighbors? Why not this guy? There's so many reasons. Let's look. Why? Because one, I want the player and I want him to drop to me. Two, money. For sure. Money. If I'm an agent, and I think the difference in value from one pick to the next in the top 10 was like $1 million guaranteed. $1 million in guaranteed money. If I'm getting 5% of that, that's $50,000. How hard is it for me to shoot off a text for $50,000 and I shoot a text out to somebody saying, I need you to spread the rumor. I need you to say this. I'll give you 10 grand to do it. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Plus, kicks up conversation, shoots all that kind of stuff around. So we'll see. Make you fumble talking, going back to the Brock Bowers conversation. Imagine Bowers and Pitts, though. Then we could allow Pitts to walk. That's why I said if Bowers was to come in, I think you'd want to trade you'd probably be trying to move on from Kyle Pitts. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think there may have been a little more going on with Pitts and his injury than Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons let on. I'd still like to see effort look a little better, from him, snap to snap, but we'll see. Ryan Adonis on Tavondre Sweat. Sweat seems like another big defensive tackle that will go in the 5th round. We'll see. I think he probably goes a little higher than that. He's still taking his, some of his official visits to, I forget who was having him come in where he's got a chance, but he's still going on his visits. He's not going to be off anybody's board, but it's going to cost him a little bit. It's just, yeah, y'all make mistakes, but brother, this isn't a time to be making mistakes. You need to be living your best life from January 1st until draft day. It's 4 months to keep your nose clean. That shouldn't be that hard. And that's where it comes a question. That's why it's concerning. It's like, dude, 4 months and you're going to do this. Not that, you've got something in your background and you've made a mistake. I get that, but not now, man. It points to, is this a bigger problem type of thing? So, Harry Marshall Wood says, I'd rather take Latu at 8. He isn't going to last to a first-round trade-up. Maybe Chop, but not Latu. I agree. So, that's why when we're talking the draft, I like edge first and then maybe a cornerback if you trade back in. So, I think that's where it goes. So, yeah, and Jordan Brown says, you probably misunderstood what they meant by living your best life right now. Yeah, keeping your nose clean. How's that one? You need to be keeping your nose clean right now. That might be the best way to go. Who are we talking about here? Boy Bangley. Are we still talking about Eddie Goldman? Good to see you. He's over on YouTube. He says, if Goldman actually plays, I'm convinced that he hates Arthur Smith. Then why sign? That's just weird. Brian on here, it says it's a probably get cut, non-guaranteed mini deal. Those are all, for the most part, all of the deals that you're going to read about. Again, you got to get 100 guys into camp. You're going to get a lot of these deals. It doesn't mean anything yet. The only move that will affect, without a doubt in my mind, all but that for sure type of thing, move, is Kirk Cousins. The Falcons will not take a quarterback at 8. That's about the only thing I'm 99.9% just short of saying absolutely won't happen. That's the only move that's none of the wide receiver signings would keep you from taking Marvin Harrison Jr. if he fell to 8. We've still taken Rome Odunze when he's fallen to 8, just saying that this is something that could happen. We sound strange. Good question here. He says, how big is the gap between Turner Latu, Verse, and Chop Robinson? With the Falcons taking in a haul to get into early 20s and going Chop, then maybe get a cornerback or safety in early 2nd. So how far would you be willing to trade back and get one of those guys? I don't want to trade back that far. I think there's a decent enough drop between the three top ones and Chop Robinson. Now, Chop's a really good athlete. The production necessarily wasn't there as much. The Falcons, I've given them a pass, no pun intended, on the edge rusher group for the last couple of years. Since Terry Fontenot's been in charge, there hasn't really been that for sure edge, either in free agency, you didn't have any money. They're really expensive in free agency anyway, or where you were drafting. Yes, Micah Parsons, he wasn't an edge in that draft. That's one of the reasons why he lasted where he did. If in a redraft, he doesn't go past 2, let alone 4. So you have to wipe him off the board. That's hindsight grading. Nobody knew that Micah Parsons was going to be like this, an edge, or he wouldn't have lasted that long. So, and then the next year, last year, what was the top one? Like Lucas Van Ness, George Karlaftis. Is that who you want at 8? Maybe. We talked about it a lot, especially Lucas Van Ness towards the end, but I think he still fell into the teens. This year, there's no excuse. There's no excuse not to grab your pass rusher. Either you've passed on some guys in free agency or you weren't able to get them in free agency, and you're sitting there at 8 with some guys that will match up with your board, assuming they match up with your board, around where you're picking at your most critically needed spot at 8. No excuse. There's no excuse to miss on one of the premier edge rushers in this draft. I'm not trading down. Not for this class. I think the offense is good enough that I'm not going, I need 2 more wide receivers. No. I want to do this because I want to get another offensive lineman or this. No. You've got enough picks right now to fill the holes on your team with good prospects. Safety, corner, edge. I can do that in this draft. I can. And the offense is pretty well set already. So we'll see. Leon Mapstone, good to see you. He's over on Facebook. Appreciate you being here. Ryan Adonis says, are we expecting guys who haven't played in 4 years to be capable of playing in 2024? You take a shot. Again, no, you're not. I'm not. But Ryan, you've heard me say before, you watch all these shows. Would I listen to would you take a look at? For me, the answer is pretty much yes at the end of every one of those statements. Would you sign Kevin King to a non-guaranteed deal to see if he has anything left over the summer? Yeah, why not? Would I bring in Eddie Goldman? It's opportunity cost. What am I missing out on if I don't? He's not going to take a hit on the salary cap. I'll take a shot on a guy that with some tools. I'll take a look. It doesn't mean I'm going to guarantee anything, and I'm not going to cost myself anything. But no, the answer on this is no. Are we expecting guys who haven't played in 4 years to be capable of playing in 2024? No. If they do, it's gravy, and I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot. Michael Lewinsky says, morning, Scott. Hope you had a fun trip. I did. Lots of good sea lice, some nurse sharks, some gigantic eels and crabs, lots of lobsters. Problem is, I was afraid. I like to practice my Spanish. I speak a little bit of Spanish, so I like to practice when I'm down there. So between my dive signals and speaking Spanish, I wanted to make sure I could still do my podcast. But it seems to be going okay so far. And Brian says the Penix private workout could also be a smokescreen. Again, gaslighting? Was that what it is? No, that's not the same thing. Okay, I still don't get gaslighting. I don't know. Gaslighting is asking a question about something that you act like you want to learn about when you're being disingenuous and you plan on debate whatever the person answers. One of my good friends is like that. He's a lawyer. See, when I ask a question, it's because I want to know the answer, because I'm curious. When he asks a question, it's because he wants to see what I want to say so he then can argue against me. And it's just frustrating. I'm like, then why'd you ask? So if that's what that is. Okay. So thank you. So a little bit different. Knowingly false to try and make them feel crazy or make them angry, not bluffing. Okay. So thank you. Archangel, good to see you. Morning, Scotty. Appreciate you being here. We used to call gaslighting lying. Yeah, there we go. We're catching up to this. I scrolled down through all the comments to try and get all of your conversations in here. Let me see here. Anthony White says to Winston Thornton, shout out to you and John with the Eye Test podcast. Very cool. Anthony, good to see you in here. Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's amazing. This is Justin Dante Jenkins over on Facebook. Good question. What about Kool-Aid McKinstry? He's just fallen off a cliff. He's fallen off like the Penn State guys had. Chop Robinson, Olu Fashanu, and I thought that was Kelvin King. I've already forgotten his name. The cornerback from Penn State were considered, Kalen King, were considered to possibly be top 10 draft picks. Kalen King has fallen off a cliff. Kool-Aid McKinstry got outplayed by Terrion Arnold and will probably still go top 35, top 40. Maybe your second round there. But, man, the questions, we got a lot of Bama fans in here too, and between the different podcasts we do, and they talk about it's just kind of that want to, Justin. Does he want to play? Some of that changes when you get to the NFL and you reach the highest level and you're trying to prove yourself over and over again, and you're not quite as, I don't want to say entitled, but comfortable that you are in college. But he scares me a little bit with effort and attitude from the reports that we've been getting on why he's falling. So, that's one of the things on Kool-Aid. I'm not out on him, but the guys that I'm really interested in and could probably get one of those four in the 20s, it's Nate Wiggins, Cooper DeJean. Well, one of those two could fall. And I want to wait. But I mean, I see Terrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Nate Wiggins. When 3 of those 4 go, I'm on the phone with whoever's picking next to see if I can move up and get the 4th one in the 4th round. That might be something that I would be. String Guy has a good question. Scott, in your opinion, what is the most difficult to move from college to the NFL? I think initially it's probably interior line. Just because of the grown man strength. The skill position players, I like to say skill guys they're born. They're not, skill players are born, linemen are built. But you get, a 21-year-old kid who's coming out after 3 years, or even if he's a senior and he's coming out, he's 22, and you're playing against grown men in the trenches. I think interior line is probably, especially interior defensive line, I think is probably the hardest move from college to the NFL, because you're going from guys that might not even play a lick of NFL to guys that can squat a house and bench press a piano that have been in the league for 6-8 years, and they don't fall off. Oh, this cornerback's, been 8 years in the league. Well, typically if you've lasted 8 years in the league, you're pretty good anyway. But the physical ability, a prime for a lineman can be in his 30s. That's not really usually happen for skill guys. So I think the most difficult move to be a dominant player in the NFL would be on the lines of scrimmage. And the closer in, the more it's going to be about strength as opposed to raw athleticism. So something of that. Good question though. So Anthony White, going back to talking about Grady Jarrett, he said he got hurt in the Titans game. I was at the game. Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I couldn't remember. That game was heartbreaking and took the life out of that Falcons game. Yeah, and then, Will Levis had a historical day. I think it was the best debut game in the history of the NFL with his 4 touchdown passes. So we'll see. Real quick, might have to cut it here short here in just a couple of minutes. My voice is starting to give out. I haven't been talking for 4 hours a day for 2 weeks. Keith says, Scott, will it trade up in the top 10 before April 26th? Maybe. But I think it would have to be into the top 3 if it was going to happen. If you're targeting a quarterback and you've got one of the big 3, unless you were confident that there were 4 guys that you liked, then 4. I think if you were going to trade up in this draft, you would have to trade up into the top 4. Who is most likely to make a trade in the top 4? The Arizona Cardinals. So if there is a trade in the top 10 before the draft, it will be with the Arizona Cardinals at number 4. So someone can be guaranteed to get one of the 4 top quarterbacks in this draft. Otherwise, why would I be the Denver Broncos at 12 and trade up to 8? Why? Why would I do that? You would wait and see, okay, the Cardinals stayed put. They took Marvin Harrison Jr. or somebody did. Somebody traded up, and there's still a quarterback at 5. Okay, I'm on the phone with 5. Okay, they went with the Joe Alt. They went with the big tackle. They went with Roma Dunze. They went with Malik Neighbors. Okay, 6 is now available. Now I'm on the phone with them. So I don't see a big move being made unless it's with the Cardinals. That would be at number 4. Otherwise, you can't. Why would you make a big move? You're making a big move for a quarterback, and you're not moving into a spot where you're not guaranteed to get one. So that's how I think on that one. Nando says, I wouldn't be surprised if we were a top 15 defense. Not saying you did, but we did have the weakest schedule in my 43 years watching the Falcons. Yeah, without a doubt, Nando. It was, again, whatever the numbers said, they were a little misleading. I mean, I ran through the quarterbacks that the Falcons faced. It was, again, there's a reason Arthur Smith was fired. It wasn't just 7-10, it was 7-10 against a historically bad schedule, and you looked worse last year. Brian, so Kelvin King hasn't played in 2 years, now coming off Achilles. Dude is a playmaker if healthy. We'll see. We'll see if he ends up getting healthy. Again, Kevin King is at zero risk. Zero. So why not? Give it a shot. I bet he doesn't have much more than like 100,000 in guaranteed money. It would be six figures, whatever it is. It'd be pretty cheap. Rusty Moore Jr., he says, Terry drafted a tight end at 4 to start a rebuild. He does not care about positional need. If they're not the best prospect available on his board, get your neighbors a Dunze jersey. We'll see. They were looking for we didn't know it at the time. They were looking for a Julio Jones replacement. And they thought they were getting one. I disagreed with it at the time. I didn't want a pass catcher in that spot. I wanted a foundational player or a trade back. And again, I don't know what they were offered to trade back. If we found out that they turned down something similar to what the Dolphins got at that number 3 spot, I'd fire him that day. 3 first-round picks with that team, that Falcons team, in that draft. Goodness. But and it's one of the reasons I've tried to change that phrase of BPA to best prospect available, because best player available sounds like a fact. Oh, they went best player available, did they? Because Jamar Chase went right after that. Jamar Chase is probably the BPA in that spot. Micah Parsons, Pat Surtain, all better BPAs, but prospect on their board leaves a shade of doubt in there, so you're still prospecting and not trying to claim that, hey, he's the best player available. I've rehashed this a zillion times. We don't need to get into it again. If you want to, you can ask me. What were your thoughts when the Falcons drafted Kyle Pitts? Didn't like it. You can get into it for a whole host of reasons on another show some other time. This summer would be a good time. But positional need, I'm not saying I disagree with you, and that's why, Rusty, when I was talking about the edge, there will be edges available that should come pretty damn close to your board. And that's where I think, there's no excuse to not get your edge here. And that's why I'm also okay with moving down a little bit. You could move down and say, okay, we've got Verse, Turner, Latu. All 3 of those guys between 11 and 15 in our board. I don't want to take one at 8, but I can get back to 11. Okay, fine with me. I'm okay with that. As long as you come out of that with one of those 3 guys. Now, you're talking about wide receiver. We have also discussed the very real possibility if Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors fall to 8, that the Falcons go wide receiver. It is absolutely a possibility. We've done it. Will it happen? We'll see. But if you take 4 quarterbacks, there's supposed to be 8 really good offensive prospects in this draft. They're supposed to be considered the top 8. I swear last year it was 7 with the Falcons picking 8. It's the 4 quarterbacks, the 3 wide receivers, and offensive tackle Joe Alt. Those are considered a leap above everybody else in this draft as far as, either a really exciting prospect or quarterback of the future. So someone's going to be there at 8. It's guaranteed. One of those guys is going to be there at 8. One of those top 8 guys. That's just basic math. If anybody else jumps up, there could be 2 of those guys available at 8. Could be Joe Alt. I don't want an offensive tackle in this class. Could happen. I'd rather get one down the line and develop and see if it can get a developmental prospect. But one of those wide receivers could absolutely fall. We'll see. We will see. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. I want to appreciate you, Rusty, for coming in with a super chat, breaking the ice. Welcome back. Got Lawrence Rivera. Lawrence Rivera coming in over on Facebook. Lawrence, I can't quite find you. Keith and Ellen Johnson did come in with some stars over on Facebook. Says, good morning. Glad to have you back. Looking forward to the draft. Thank you for the stars. Lawrence, I see your stars too. Let me see if I can find. There we go. Lawrence says, well, Scott's back. That means so am I. What's up, homeboy? Good to see you, Lawrence. Appreciate you coming in. And Roderick also says, it's a big year for Pitts, no doubt. It is. He will have his 5th year if it hasn't already been picked up. His 5th year option is a definite. It's $10 million because he's a tight end. Despite being the number 4 pick, his 5th year option will be picked up. Whether they want to extend that after this season depends a lot on this season. I agree with you on that one. This is a big season for Kyle Pitts before he just becomes one of those uber athletic guys who never puts it all together. Does that what happened? We'll see. Still super young, coming off an injury last year. So we'll see. I'm going to wrap it up here pretty quick. Tyler Eccles says, I love this channel. I don't know where we are, but now we doubled down on either edge or outside linebacker. Edge and outside linebacker are kind of interchangeable terms. So I could see that happen. Also, we've done that as well, where Leatu Latu fell. We traded back up. I could double up there. I took Dallas Turner at 8 and then traded back up to get one of the cornerbacks. It was going too fast. I didn't see it. Wait a minute. Leatu Latu's there? Leatu Latu or Cooper DeJean? Yeah. I doubled up on edge too, on something like that. I could see it happen. Question from Rusty. Did you see the interview Desmond Ridder gave where he basically blamed the coaches and the team? Rusty, I did not. That's not a good look. I don't know what he said, so I don't want to comment too much on it. But if you're, bashing the ex, it's never a good look. So we'll see. Not a good look. That's all I will say if you are doing something like that. Keith with some stars too. He says, this show is awesome. Appreciate you being here. Jerry Mills has a question. What about the defensive tackle, the defensive lineman from Florida State in the second round? On defensive tackle, I believe you were talking about Braden Fisk, and I think he is a very good pick in the second round. I was watching when I went down to the Senior Bowl and saw him. I was right in the middle of watching Daredevil again on Disney Plus, and Kingpin, his name is Wilson Fisk. So I started trying to get everybody to call him Kingpin. Shave his head, big dude. He needs to be Kingpin. So Kingpin, he would be a very good second round pick. Is that where you want to go with this draft? I'm not sure, but I think he is. That's good value if you were to pick him there. Chris Walker, when he asks here, he says, do you think we might get Robinson or Fisk? So Darius Robinson, him and Quinyon Mitchell were my 2 top performers at the Senior Bowl, and both should go in the first round. I think Darius Robinson would be a stretch. And Chris, I think if you want to get Quinyon Mitchell, I think you're going to have to use your first pick in the draft. So let's say you go down to 11 or 12 and you take Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold. I think that's possible. Then maybe you come back in for Chop Robinson at the back end, or maybe a guy like Leatu Latu falls. People say, oh, his arms are a little too short, or he didn't run, 3/100ths of a second as fast as we would have liked him to. We don't want him. Okay, great. Let him fall into the 20s, because that's where the teams that are constantly in the playoffs pick really good football players and don't worry about those kind of things. Steven says, I heard Dallas Turner called boom or bust recently. You buy that? Not really. I think he's too good a football player. And, will he reach his absolute potential? But would you call Kyle Pitts a boom or a bust right now? I think he's a good football player. I wouldn't call him a bust. I wouldn't say he's boomed either. So has he reached his potential? Not yet. We'll see, but he's young. So no, I don't buy that. No more so, Steven, than I do with any player. They all have boom potential. They all have bust potential. So I don't consider that any more with Dallas Turner than I do any other prospect, because they all have some of that in them. On Michael Ronquillo says, great show today, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. Thank you, Michael. Certainly appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. And Conga Hydra, he says it's strange how all these guys seem like they can't miss prior to being selected in the draft. Yeah, there's almost no such thing as can't miss guys. The closest ones, going from high school to college is a little bit easier, and still even then, when you're betting on a player, bet against them, because they fail more than they succeed. When you're talking 5-star guys going from high school to college, first rounders, it's still probably in the 50-50 range. 50-50 range on first rounders. And at the very top, it should be better, but the expectations are higher. So, you take a guy in the top 10, you're expecting to get a Pro Bowler. And if he ends up just being a serviceable pro, well, that's not good enough. So, yeah, the closest thing I ever really saw to a can't miss was Calvin Johnson. Just Megatron. He had the mental makeup as well. Stable family, great background, awesome worker, would block his ass off when he was at Sandy Creek. Just really put together as far as, the work ethic and all that type of stuff. And then he's 6'4", 225 pounds, running 4.3s. I mean, that's the closest thing I've ever seen to a can't miss was Calvin Johnson. So on that note, y'all, glad to be back. Thank you for stopping in and saying hello. Check out Lion Coffee if you haven't already. Nick and I will be back tomorrow. We haven't done a mock draft in a while. It's been at least a week, right? So we'll probably do something like that. But I wanted to get back here today on a bonus Tuesday to make up for lost time from yesterday. Appreciate y'all being here. See you tomorrow.